Okay, I just want to do a couple of quick hitters on the more questions. So very quickly, George and Lenny. I think George. I talked about in the one about his decision. I think he's absolutely a dynamic character. There's no question that he grows, changes, and adapts. I would argue Lenny doesn't have the capacity to be a dynamic character. So Lenny has to be a static character because he just doesn't have the ability to grow, change, or adapt. Um, the idea of Steinbeck starting every chapter with a detailed description, obviously, he wants to set the scene. You could also maybe argue, he originally wrote this to be a play, and playbills, screenplays oftentimes start every act or scene with a detailed description. Those could be a couple ways you could think about it. We've already talked about the dream and why it's so important to them. It's important for different reasons to different characters. The American dream. The American dream is that notion that if you work hard, you can achieve anything, you can own your own land, you'll be great. And I think that Steinbeck in this piece shows two men chasing the American dream. But if you look at the end, they don't achieve the American dream. And there's multiple references that doesn't happen for a lot of people. And so for Steinbeck, I would argue he is, and a lot of his writings focus around the American dream being unattainable for most. Candy's motivation to join George and Letty's dream, pretty simple there. I think he wants to belong. He feels useless. He sees what they did to his dog, and he wants to not end up in the same way. Not that they would kill him, but that he would be discarded, that he would be pushed off to the side in the same way that his dog was. So his motivation is to find a place that he belongs. Sympathy for Curly's wife. I think that's obviously an opinion question, but whether or not you feel sympathy for Curly's wife really comes down to how you view her character. And if you view her character as only like this dishonest floozy who just wants to flirt with other dudes, I think you're missing a lot of her character. So this is one of those questions where there's not a right or wrong answer, but there is an answer I think that is easier to prove based on a full understanding of the novella versus only understanding a little bit of it and just going, well, I don't like Curly's wife, so no, I don't feel sympathetic for her. Um, is Curly more protective of his ego or his wife? I think it's pretty easy to point out that he cares very little for his wife and he cares more about how he is perceived. And I think you could point to the glove full of Vaseline, right? There's no indication that it's actually about his wife. It's more about him and people knowing that he wears it. Also, at the end of the chapter 5, when he finds his wife dead, he's more concerned with revenge than with mourning. So again, I think this is one where you could make an argument on both sides of this, but one is just an easier argument to make. I'm going to skip. Why does George stay with Lenny? Why does Slim understand what George had to do at the end of the novella? I think that really goes to who we understand Slim to be, but also the fact that Slim has taken the opportunity to actually get to know George a little bit. Like Slim understands that George did this and that George chose to do this. Whereas Carlson and Curly believe that it was like some sort of struggle for the gun and George just killed Lenny and Slim knows that's all made up. And he knows that because that's his character. He is perceptive. He has taken the time to get to know George, and that's what makes his understanding more thorough and thoughtful than the understanding that Carlson and Curly had. Um, Crooks's room, and we didn't talk too much about this in chapter 4, but Crooks's room is filled with things that project loneliness. He has a single solitary light. He has a lot of books, which indicate he doesn't have a lot of interaction, so he reads. His things are kind of cast about, and he doesn't necessarily need to organize them because it's just his room. He doesn't share a room like the other guys share the bunkhouse. So there's a lot of different parts of his room that indicate that loneliness and that help us understand who Crooks is. Um, Characterizing the relationship between George and Lenny, I think most of you understand, it's something between like father son and brother brother, big brother little brother. However you choose to characterize that is kind of up to your own interpretation. But there is a piece that is kind of like, I don't want to say love hate, but like you need they have moments where George is frustrated. All right. Um, so that's all I'm going to share with those. If you have any specific questions about the other ones, just go back and watch those videos. And yeah, that sounds good, everybody. Hope you have a great day.